Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode. I am happy to be here with Jennifer Parker, who has agreed to come and share her story. So, hi, Jennifer, and welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Trine. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Would you start by sharing a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Sure thing. My name is Jennifer, and I live in the United States in Georgia. And I am a mom of three boys, two teenagers, and a 10-year-old. And they are all homeschooled. And I'm a writer and what's called an aroma freedom technique practitioner. And I recently wrote my first book for highly sensitive people, and it's called Secrets of the Resilient Empath.
Oh, so that sounds good.
That is what is my happy place, is being at home and writing.
Yeah, I like that. And I think many of us can relate to the being at home part.
Yes.
It is a happy place.
I'm a homebody for sure. Yes. I love my home. I love being out in my yard.
Yeah.
So my husband is always like, let's go somewhere. And I'm like, let's not.
Yeah. I sometimes joke if I have to go somewhere, I'll be like, oh my God, I just had this week's out of home experience, because out of body, it's in Danish, right? It's sort of the same term. So it's like, oh, I have to go
now
out.
I need to recover.
Yes. If people are just listening, they won't be able to see, but you have a drum kit in the background. And I think that's so cool. And you mentioned that it's your boys and that you've homeschooled them. So that wasn't just through the pandemic, that has been all the way, or?
Yes. Well, my older two are almost 15 and 17, and they went to public school here I think the oldest went through third grade and the second boy went through kindergarten, and they are also highly sensitive, different, we all have our own little recipe of sensitivity, our own little levels of sensitivity, but it just, they needed something else. It wasn't an environment that they were thriving in. And so it was like, okay, we have to do something different. So we did.
Yeah. And the little one, or the youngest?
Yeah, he never has been to public school. So he's been homeschooled the whole time.
Yeah.
And he hasn't asked to go. So he hasn't asked to go. It was always like, it's not jail. You can go back if you want, but they've enjoyed it. So they've done well in the calmer environment. So I think a lot of us who are highly sensitive maybe struggled in some ways with school being overstimulating for us.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I tend to think that it's not always a what doesn't kill you makes you stronger thing, but sometimes it just gives you lots of, coping mechanisms and maybe some complex PTSD. So I'm sure there are lots of sensitive kids who do love school and they want to be with their friends and they want the activities, but for our family, that's just what worked out best.
Yeah. I think that's really lovely, that being aware of what your kids need and then being able to give them that. So it sounds like you were aware of your own sensitivities at the time, or was it something you learned alongside figuring out what your kids needed?
Well, actually, I started to learn about highly sensitive people about having a more sensitive nervous system when my oldest was a baby or was a toddler, because he was very intense, just like different than other kids. We went to what was called Gymboree when he was a toddler, which was kind of like a play and music lesson. And, they'd have music and they'd be singing, and he would just have his hands over his ears and be freaking out. And we still joke about the time that they had like a circle and the kids were all singing. And my son stood up, put his hands over his ears and screamed. And all the other parents were just like, oh my word, what is wrong with this child? But I started to learn about sensory processing sensitivity, which isn't the same thing, but still it's probably just another level of
I think so.
What happens when we're highly sensitive and we get dysregulated. So when I learned about that, I was like, oh, I think I have that too.
Yes.
And so then just starting to research. So helping him helped me learn to help myself more as well.
Yeah.
So, and he's an amazing kid.
And it hasn't put him off music completely, I guess. The Jamboree lessons.
The youngest one plays the drums, but the oldest plays piano. And he's very extroverted. He has his own, he's 17. He has a photography business.
Wow.
He does not hesitate to talk to anybody, which is something that kind of blows my mind, because I was always very kind of a quiet and shy kid, but he has really blossomed, and I'm glad we were able to give him an environment where he could do that.
Absolutely.
Where all of them could.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you tell us a bit more about your book? I would love to hear how that came about and more about the resiliency.
Yes. So I suppose always having grown up in a not so friendly to highly sensitive people environment. And
yes, that's a diplomatic way of saying it.
It's a very diplomatic way to put it. So as many of us had growing up in families with generational trauma and lots of, even I didn't have the abuse that a lot of people have gone through, but lots of, mental and emotional things that happened. So anyway, so growing up always, which I think is common for people who do have complex PTSD, which may be a lot of sensitive people who grew up in an emotionally abusive environment have, that just you feel always like something is wrong with you, like you're trying to fix something. And how I dealt with that was delving into personal development, and I spent my 20s poring over the personal development books and just trying to fix myself. And then as I found out about the nervous system, and that some of us are more sensitive, and that some of us are empaths, which also can have a lot to do with that trauma wiring. And that it came to me that, okay, these things that they always tell us to push harder, to hustle, to push, and that if you just tried harder, it would work.
Don't get me started on that one.
Right? Like, you're just not trying hard enough. And I realized, like, this does not work for a lot of people. And it's not this advice that many of us get, that we take to heart, that we beat ourselves up over, is not trauma aware, it's not nervous system aware, and it doesn't take into consideration that some of us are just wired differently. So I wanted to write something for people like us that, let us know that we were okay, and explained the science behind why we are the way we are, as well as incorporating that personal growth, which I do think that there's value to some of that, but we have to weed through what works for us and what is just like hoopla that's, you know,
that's
made
adding
for somebody
to the
else.
pressure and the stress.
Yes.
Really, sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely making you feel like you should be something that you're not. And so
forever chasing that better version of ourselves
yes.
out there somewhere. Yeah.
Right. The carrot being dangled.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, and look at us go.
Yes. Right. Chasing the carrot.
Yes.
And not appreciating who we really are, and that those little things that we're good at, like, you know, really tuning into people, or a lot of us are very creative, or we're very intuitive or gifted in other ways that aren't necessarily valued in, you know, the culture of commercialism and whatnot. So, but yeah, we see that the world needs us. It needs sensitive people. So that's another thing that I wanted to emphasize in the book, was helping us to appreciate who we are and to tune back into those little parts that we may have lost and dropped because we thought, oh, it's not good enough. It's not, I need to, you know, make more money or be, be just right to fit in this box that we just weren't made for.
Yeah. I like that. And we got to put a link to your book in the notes so people can find it and read more. Yes, absolutely. Because I think it's so important to get that sense of relief that we are actually okay as we are, and all the qualities that we do have. And that's what I want as well, to start seeing it as superpowers, because some of it really is, I find, as you said, you know, picking up on what other people, what's going on for them. And you also previously mentioned this sense of social justice. Would you say a bit more about that? Because I think that's common for sensitives as well, to some degree.
Yeah, I think so too. And that was something that I had read like a long time ago in regards to children, that a lot of gifted children, that one of the hallmarks of giftedness is a very strong sense of justice at a young age. Yeah. And I think that a lot of highly sensitive people do have that, where we feel very strongly when we see someone being hurt or something that, you know, we see consequences of things that people are just like, no, we have to do this. But what about the consequences? What about the people who you're not thinking of who are being hurt, or the animals who are being hurt, and the planet? We have a lot of we have a lot to offer as far as that kind of innate wisdom, I think, that gets bowled over a lot of times.
That it's sort of kind of in the way of progress and the hustle, and it's just sort of a nuisance, you know, doing the right thing and stuff. Who has time for that? Like, we gotta make some more money. It's like, but could we please be a little nicer? It's like,
right. Who cares?
Who cares? Yes. Where's the money in that? I mean,
right. Yeah. Like, oh, those crazy people wanting things to take into consideration all the little pieces. But I think that's something we're good at, is that big picture thinking. A lot of us are really good at that, which is important, and also often totally bowled over. Like very myopic viewpoints that people get, where they're focused on one thing and refusing to look at the other things. So I think even though it's hard, that it's important for us to find our voice and to be able to point out those things. I think in Dr. Aaron's book about highly sensitive people, that she points that out, that people were supposed to, in historically, like that they consulted with the more, you know, the only word that's coming to mind is like the wise men that they would kind of consult with, and that the ruling class or the warrior class would also have that balance, and that people kind of don't want to have that balance anymore, and it's all warrior all the time.
Yep. Yes, there's a lot of go.
Yes. So yeah, hunt it down, kill it, drag it back.
Yes.
So, which we need, you know, those kind of people too in the world, but we definitely, I think, need to find our voice as those. It sounds haughty to say wiser. I don't want to say wiser, but the more
I think it's allowed here.
Okay. The more thoughtful and introspective kind of people are needed.
Yeah. And as you say, with this sense of the bigger picture, I definitely think we need more of that. And
right.
Yeah. So
yeah, it seems like there's always a lot of oh, who could have seen that coming? And it's like, me, I saw it coming, and you said I was crazy.
Yes.
You gave me a really hard time, but I saw it coming.
Yeah. And that's why I think you're so right, that we need to find our voice. We need to find the confidence to keep speaking our truth, even if it's ignored the first 99 times.
Right.
So do you have any advice or tools that have been helpful to you in getting there to be, you know, writing a book and putting it out there? Because that takes courage as well.
Excuse my dog there. Yes, I mean, so many things. I think for me that which probably helped in writing a book, is I tended always to be an overthinker, of like ignoring what was going on in my body, ignoring a lot of what's going on around me, and like trying to fix things by thinking. Yes. And and that learning to kind of drop out of that and to quiet the mind, and to take time every day to just be quiet, and to, I mean, quiet in my head. I'm often quiet, but my head is always going. But to quiet the mind, and to pay attention to the body, I think is really important. And I started doing somatic experiencing, which is probably many of people may be familiar with that, but where it's a kind of therapy where you really are tuned into your body experience and healing trauma by letting the body be heard and calming the nervous system at that deep level. So
yeah,
I think, the nervous system is such a big deal for us as highly sensitive people, and to understand just, you know, the basic workings of it, and like, oh, this is happening because my nervous system is getting dysregulated, and what can I do to calm my nervous system or to get my nervous system out of a frozen state. If we're to that point where I think I spent a lot of my life in that point where you are in the state of first fight or flight, where you're trying to either, you know, run from the danger or fight the danger, but then you kind of, your body gives up and is like, okay, I can't fight this anymore. There's nothing I can do. I'm helpless. And you drop into the frozen state. So, and then that can feel a lot like you're depressed, but it's actually in the nervous system, not just you know, chemical reaction or whatever. So I think that's very important for us to learn about.
Is that
highly
what's
sensitive people?
Yeah, absolutely. Is that in a way when the nervous system is overwhelmed, or is it like burnout, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that burnout is very often in the nervous system, that where it's just, you can't maintain that go anymore. And since we're always absorbing more from our environments in our nervous systems, that those things that may seem fun or easy to someone else may be very overwhelming to us and may burn us out more quickly.
Yeah. Even things that we enjoy as well can be, can really take it out of us sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's difficult for people to understand sometimes, if we're like, oh, I need a day and a half after that party. And they're like, but weren't you enjoying yourself? You looked like you had a good time. And it's like, yeah, I was. But there were a million people and there was loud music and there were a million things to pay attention to. So it's going to take me a day and a half now to recover. So
definitely.
Yeah,
I think people who are wired in a more hearty way definitely don't understand that, where it seems just like dramatic or something, but it's really is like a visceral reaction. I mean, I call them like peopling hangovers, where I'll wake up like the next day with a headache. It's like, I haven't been drinking, I just talked to too many people.
Yes, I know that feeling. And I've also known people who took it personally, almost, when I was like, oh, could we sort of maybe go home now? It's like, but you never want to hang out, you never want to, and it's like, but it's not you, it's me. I just need,
right.
It has taken a while for some of my even closest people to start to get that okay, it isn't because she doesn't want to hang out with me, it's just because she needs her space. So
right. I think it is another reason why it's important for us, how you're doing with the podcast and everything, to bring awareness to that, because it's like people don't understand it. They make judgments that can be hurtful, or they take it personally, or they think like, oh, she's stuck up or something. It's like, or whatever, but it would be nice, especially in the case, it's like, we're used to it. Like, I've been doing this for 40 some years. I can do it longer, but but for children, for children too, for them to be understood, for this to be something that people know about, like, some people are wired in a more highly sensitive way, she just needs more time, or for kids, for them to understand, okay, they're not just being difficult, they're overwhelmed, and they need to have some compassion, instead of the adults making judgments about kids that are inaccurate.
Absolutely. And I like to think that the more of us as parents who become aware of these things, and then we can help our kids to grow up without the first 30 years of thinking they're wrong, before they start to realize, there is another way of living.
Definitely.
So and I remember when especially my daughter was little, and her best friend would come knock on the door, and she'd be like, no thanks, and she would want to play, and we talked about, sometimes it's important to say, I'm happy you came by, and I would love to play another day, but today I'm tired. so that the other person wouldn't, because if you get that no often enough, people stop asking, and that's understandable as well, because nobody likes rejection. So if they feel like we don't want to be with them, so we have had those conversations like forever about honoring ourselves, and then be open and clear about it so that others can sort of learn to navigate it as well, I think.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You were able to give her the words and support to help her to express herself like that so she could be understood and have better friendships.
Now she's just rolling her eyes sometimes because because her teachers
comes, right?
Yeah, but her teachers are always complimenting her that, oh, you're so good at communicating what it is that you need and what you find difficult, and it's such a pleasure to have. And she's like, yeah, my mom's always been talking to me about these things.
Well done.
Yeah, did get some things right. I like knowing that.
That feels good. That feels really good when you see them growing up and are like, hey, that worked.
Yes, they became nice people. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Not to say that there isn't countless hours of therapy in them still, because I'm sure there's plenty of work for them to do. So, but I think you said that some of that personal growth is kind of, it's good work too, isn't it? So yes. Yeah. Let's leave a little bit of that for kids. Yes. Right? Yes. A lot of value. So now that we are talking about our kids, do you have like a legacy that you would like to leave, either to your kids or to sort of the bigger picture, to the whole wide world, with your book or whatever it might be?
Yes, right. That is one nice thing about writing is it's like, oh, if something happens to me, people can still read my book. But in general, yeah, I mean, I feel like one thing that I'm proud of is like looking back at like both my family history and my husband's family history, like that and probably a lot of people will relate to this, of being the cycle breakers. And I think highly sensitive people are, it's something that I think I mentioned in the book, that it's like, it's kind of like a work that we are born for. Like we're cycle breakers because we're introspective and we notice things, and we're the ones who are not, people may think that we're, weak in some way, but often we're very emotionally strong, and where we can do the deep introspective work that people are afraid of, to be able to break those cycles of, adults acting like children. Because it's like, once you have done that work yourself and you see sometimes like someone yelling at their kids, and you realize like, oh my word, you're like in your 4-year-old or your 5-year-old self interacting with your child. So I like that idea of just being a cycle breaker, like that ended with me. And that my kids can be healthier and start to pass on that healthier, more whole mind, whole human, not like this, not that we're not all whole humans, but sometimes when you're carrying with you all that trauma, it's like you're not functioning as your whole self, because you're in a constricted kind of protective mode. So you're not able to kind of just go out there and be yourself. So I hope that my kids will be able to really feel free to be themselves and not feel like they have to protect because they are not feeling safe in their environment. So.
I really like that. And I think that is a superpower, being able to do that. Yeah. And I like what you're saying, that sensitives might seem weak. And I think people perceive us that way to some degree, like, oh, she's hysterical, or so always dramatic, or you're so sensitive, and all these things that we have heard a million times. But yes, I do believe that you're right, that when we see something in ourselves, we have that willingness to actually look at it to possibly a deeper degree than others. And it's a skill we have learned out of necessity. I don't know, but yeah, I definitely think there's value in it.
I think so too. And tying in like what we talked about earlier with, feeling that strong sense of justice, that I think we also can be very mentally tough in that way, where when someone is being hurt, or where we see some, standing up for those who are weaker, or for if something we know is wrong and people are pushing it on us, like we can really be stubborn and hold the line. Like they do not expect it. They don't see it coming.
Oh, no, they don't.
For the quiet ones, right? Yes. But yeah, I think we have a lot of inner strength in us. So
yes. So sharing our stories and standing up for who we are is, I think, sometimes maybe the smallest, but also the most powerful thing we can do for other, not just sensitives, but to let everybody be who they are. So thank you so much for being here with me, doing that, exactly that, right here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Trine. I appreciate it.
It has been my pleasure, absolutely. And we will put your book in the notes and where people can reach out and find you if they want to continue this conversation. So
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.